Hey, welcome to the Merging Minds podcast, the first episode. Today we're going to be talking with Thomas, our guest, on the possibility that mental illness may really be a part of spiritual awakening, that mental illness has many spiritual gifts, and he's helping people with mental illness uncover those gifts and guide them through a spiritual awakening. So let's go talk to Thomas and see what we can learn. Hey, Thomas. Cool.
Hey, Keith.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks as well.
I'd love to just learn more about what you do and hear from you, explain more about what you do. And
I was diagnosed with a mental illness, bipolar 2, manic depressive. So I thought depression ran in my family. That's what people say. And then after I actually wrote my master thesis, I got paid to write my master thesis, and I wrote it about healthcare systems. And then I started working at healthcare publishers, so they would publish medical informations. And then I learned that the third leading cause for death in the United States are actually medical errors, which is really interesting. Right. I didn't know that. So I saw there's a mismatch between scientific facts and what's generally believed to be true. And a lot has to do with advertising and, of course, commercial reasons. So I just started investigating, and as part of my own healing journey, I integrated all kinds of aspects. And then one of the aspects was spirituality. So it really helped me understand what others perceive as a mental illness. I got to understand it as something that's a different perspective on consciousness. Yeah. So in a way, I see things differently than other people see them. And if there are too many people seeing one thing a certain way, and you're the only person seeing it the other way, yeah, you might think you're insane and you might need medication, or people tell you need medication. But what if you're the one who's sane and everybody else is insane? It's just a nice thought experiment.
Yeah, that's interesting because everything is perspective, right? So everything's
perspective. Yeah,
and that's really, especially because I personally know a lot of people who struggle with mental illness, and a lot of people that are close to me that have bipolar. But I've tried to, because my background's in metaphysics. I've studied metaphysics and got certified, and I've always tried to kind of be a spiritual life coach to them. But I did find a struggle with them. It's hard to get them to see that perspective and take a step back from their struggles, because they're so focused and engaged in the struggles and the bad parts of the mental illness that it's hard for them to kind of shift their perspectives. So how were you to kind of shift and by the way, you have is bipolar 2 the worst one or the mild one? Or
yeah, so since we talked about perspectives, this is a perfect segue. You say, is it the worst one? From a spiritual perspective, nothing is better or worse, right? Everything is, and everything is great. But from my personal experience, I think that bipolar 1, we have mania and depression. Mania can become so dangerous that you do really stupid things that you really think you can fly, or you spend money recklessly. Bipolar 2 is looks more like major depression. And you have hypermania. So the mania is not that crazy. So I never thought I was God and I could fly. I just had this burst of creativity and energy, and which just gets stuff done. It's almost like I moved in a different time, not even time zone, but just time dimension, and everybody else was in slow motion. But if I didn't slow down my body and thoughts, I would burn through the chemicals in my brain and I would crash into depression. So you can regulate anything, and that's what it actually is. It's you have so much energy, so much power. We are, if you want to go with statistics or scientists, Elon Musk thinks, I don't know what it say. There's a 1 in a billion chance that this is not a simulation. So it might be helpful just to play with the thought that this isn't it is a simulation. And then I want to figure out, how is it coded? Who built it? What are the rules? What are the rules in each different dimension? How can you leverage them? It's alchemy. So having a mental illness like bipolar, where you literally, God is singularity, right? the totality of everything. God created everything, including the underworld, including the devil, including all pain and suffering. You and me, we're the same thing. We are all God's creation. If you come from that perspective, what bipolar is, it's the two extremes. It's the opposite of singularity. It's like extreme masculine, extreme feminine. It can also be extreme heavenly or extreme. It can be like hell, like literally.
Right.
And that's what creates excitement. That's what creates either romantic stories where there's attraction and a spark between the characters, or it creates that Batman versus Joker, these two characters, the villain and the hero. But then it becomes blurry. Who is the villain? Who is the hero? Because again, it's just perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So if you open yourself up to that level of consciousness, you're not ready for it, because from a human level and the way we have been conditioned, and if you want to call it brainwashing, it could be also a term we can use. It can also just be like, this is what we agreed to, and this is the human experience you wanted to have, and it's sheep following the shepherd,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is just a game. Then yeah, people definitely think I'm crazy and insane, and at the same time, other people are like, wow, nah, he has stuff figured out. So it can be a lonely path if you're really true and authentic, because I think what many people do who have mental illnesses or are labeled with mental illnesses, and it's human nature, we want to be like everybody else. And then we might try to act a certain way, and it's not authentic. And that's where the big problem comes when it comes to mental illness, is actually the social stigma associated with it. Sure, having depression, I would take mania over depression any day. For me, depression is the worst feeling you can possibly have.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like there's literally nothing going on. I rather take pain over depression. At least something is going on when you have pain. But depression is like there's nothing. You can be dead. It's
Yeah.
like, or you want to be dead. But
Right.
when you have hypomania, you're like, okay, you might feel this terror and paranoia, and you think you're God, and then you do something in your mind, and it actually happens outside in the physical world, and you're like, that's what all these spiritual masters have been talking about. And then, wow, and then, oh, I can't tell anybody about it. So that's it. It's anything that's powerful. It's also potentially dangerous. So is mental illness real? Yeah, definitely. And people sometimes need to be medicated or be put in a treatment plan. What I see is that everything is spirituality, and anything that brings you closer to realizing who you truly are and who you're not, right? When you realize you are God and you're not Maya, the illusion, you're not your ego, and everything else is you. If mental illness gets you to the point, and that's where it got me, where I'm like, oh, I know I'm this brilliant man. I know I've done great things, but for some reason, something is holding me back. I want to figure out what it is, and I'm willing to die for it, because the life as it is right now is repetitive, it's boring, it doesn't even seem real to me. Something is not right with this current state of reality. I'm going to start investigating. And
Right.
then I went beyond science, and then I went beyond religion. I was like, okay, let me take a break here now. This is getting scary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. How long ago did you find out that you're bipolar? What age were you?
So I'm 36 now. I'm turning 37 in a couple of weeks. And I was probably, I mean, there's a difference, right? In Europe, I grew up in Austria. Um, it's not, the medical field hasn't been commercialized or consumerized as much. So people taking medications is not as common as it is here in the United States. And here I was diagnosed basically when I was going through my divorce, because I was just unhappy.
Right.
So of course, yeah. But I think that was 3 years ago. And then I went through all the phases of, okay, this is interesting. They don't know what causes bipolar. They don't know if this treatment works. They don't know if the medication works. They want me just to give it a try, and there's no plan about healing, getting off. And then that seems weird to me. And then one of the side effects of this antidepressant that my partner at the time was taking was, yeah, suicidal thoughts. And I'm like, this is just so weird to me. And then
Right.
it seemed like a spiritual trap, like, hey, you want to find God, or do you want to stay in the illusion for a little bit longer? Because yeah, if you take these medications, it's going to take away your psychic abilities. Therefore, you're not going to be challenged, and you won't have to deal with things because you're going to basically be blind again.
Right. So
Do you want to be blind again?
you stopped taking the medication?
I did, but it wasn't voluntarily. It was because I was prohibited from taking them from police officers, because I called 911 because I wanted to inquire about mental health services, because what was the school in Florida around Valentine's Day in 2008, the mass shooting at the school?
Oh yeah, I don't
Yeah,
remember the name.
yeah. But you remember, right?
Yeah.
A day later, I feel like I have to sledgehammer this weight of pain on my chest. I can't move. I can't get up.
Right.
At the time, I didn't understand what I was capable of doing. But what happened, I opened up my consciousness to that area, and I felt all the pain was going on, and I didn't know what to do. So I called 911 because I thought, like, yeah, I lost my health insurance. I just need something. I'm in pain, and I wanted to stop. And the lady asked me, what do you want to stop? And I was like, wow, that escalated quickly, right? So I think she was thinking of, I said, I want my life to stop. But I was referring to, I want the pain to stop. I need medical attention. And from there, it escalated. Police officers came to my home. It's like I woke up in the middle of the night. I didn't know what's going on. It was time to take my bipolar 2 medication. Somebody knocked at the door. I was like, okay, come in, officers. Yeah, so this was, and they're like, no, put your hands on your back. So the first thing they did when they came into my place was put me in handcuffs. So I don't know if you have ever been in handcuffs, but if you ask for medical help and somebody comes and put you in handcuffs, like, even if you don't need medical help, that person becomes your enemy. You are,
Yeah.
your life is a danger. It was a threat. There were 3 white police officers in my apartment putting a black man in handcuffs, who asked for medical help, and they asked me all these questions. They would talk all at the same time. Their cameras would beep all the time. So if you have bipolar, you get super irritated with noises.
Yeah.
And you put in handcuffs, and it's super humiliating. Like, somebody taking away your freedom. And I asked them, like, am I free to go? No, you're not free to go. Am I under arrest? No, you're not under arrest. I'm like, so the whole system, I thought, like, these people are insane. They want me to open up to them and talk to them, but they put me in handcuffs. And they're like, sorry, we have to follow protocol. So I wasn't allowed to take the medication. Long story short, I ended up in an urgent care facility. And everybody said along the way, like, yeah, we can't give you medications because we're not a psychiatrist. Do you see the irony here? Like, I knew I had no rights, and
Yeah.
I was telling them, like, I asked for medical help. You guys treat me like a criminal, and they said, no, we don't treat criminals like that. I was touched and groped in all different body parts. It was a violation of my free will. It was disgusting. It was like sexual molesting. And then it felt like torture, because they were like, you can't take your medication. So if anybody who is on prescription medication, you know that you develop a certain kind of dependency on it. Yeah.
Right.
So that urgent care had a nursing station, and I was forced to spend my night in a chair in front of the TV, CNN, and they were just sending all this news, right, about the mass shooting over and over. So we all know that it's not really healthy to sleep and fall asleep while the TV is running, especially not if it's sensationalized news of a mass shooting, right? So it was like the whole situation was just so obscure and so insane. Was like, I was just being there in handcuffs, and I felt like everybody else is here insane. Because if nobody suspected that I was mentally ill, I would have every right to just complain and ask for the manager, because the way I'm being treated is unacceptable. But
Right.
because they think I wanted to kill myself, I have no rights. So,
Yeah.
and then even the room had motion sensor lights. So anytime you would move, the light would turn on. So that's actually torture. That's the definition of torture.
Yeah.
So that's when I stopped taking medication. It was like, I will never ever be in a situation where my physical and emotional well-being is compromised because somebody else can prevent me from taking the medication I need. I don't want to be dependent on any kind of medication. And that's when I stopped taking them. And that led to my spiritual awakening. Once my body detoxified, once I stopped eating meat, like I reduced meat, maybe I eat meat like 10% of the time if I need it for grounding. And I worked with a spiritual shaman, and that basically healed everything. And then I saw what's going on, and all right, so what do we do now?
Yeah. So did you have a spiritual perspective of life before you got diagnosed with bipolar, or you?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yes, I was an altar boy, so even like every day before school, I would assist. And
So going into it right away, you were trying to find the lessons in it and view it in a spiritual perspective.
yeah, yeah, there was some point where I was atheist, I think as a teenager, and I was like, "Phew, that's really pretty exhausting,"
Yeah.
because I just see I have to go with the data here, and there's clearly something that connects all of us. Otherwise, I don't know how to explain these things. Um, and then And as quantum physics, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, spirituality, quantum physics. Um, yeah, I think it's this natural curiosity, having a framework, but then also having something that really drives you. What gives you the courage and the discipline to sit down and meditate, to sit down and investigate, to learn metaphysics, not just to talk the talk, but to walk the walk.
You
And
have
there's
to
a
have
huge
a
difference.
reason to
You
learn.
have to have a reason. And
Okay.
my reason is that when I was mentally ill, that was my reason. Like,
I see.
yeah, I had no choice. Like
So,
either die or heal. There's nothing in between.
yeah. So what would you say to people who are like currently in and out of mental hospitals and really struggling with this, who even have at certain points questioned their spiritual perspective on it and stuff, but kind of going in and out and kind of struggling to get past the symptoms of mental illness, such as like bipolar? How does someone kind of take a step back so they can start viewing it in a spiritual perspective and kind of
Yes.
themselves enough to see that way?
So the shamanic spirit. So a shaman is somebody who talks to all aspects of consciousness. So you can talk to the sun, you can talk to the moon, like little kids talk to animals. So as a grown up, yeah, just start talking to things. Right? Talk to your illness, talk to your body, talk to God, talk to yourself, and
I see.
you can do it in a way where people don't judge you for being crazy. But what happens if you ask questions, you always get an answer. And my question was, what's the lesson here?
Yeah, I see.
And then investigate like a scientist, right? You have to have a very scientific methodological approach, especially at the beginning. You have to have logic. People treat spirituality for some reason different than they treat other physical aspects of life. The logic has to be consistent, right? And if you go to 5 marketing people, one of them might be working for you and the other 4 might not be working for you, right? If you go to doctors, it's the same. You seek the experts, you seek the teachers. Once it's not beneficial,
Right.
you let go of the teacher disappears, and you just never stop seeking the truth. And that's what philosophy is. It's a philosopher is a truth seeker. So I
Conscience,
think,
yeah, constant search for answers, and uh,
yeah,
yeah, I think question starts at that. Everything starts with a question. That's because I know for me, that's kind of how I came also to my spiritual kind of awakening. You could say as I started questioning life as well. But I was wondering also, like, for what was my question? It was um, kind of passed my mind,
Yeah,
but
we talked about the framework, the spiritual framework before the awakening, or before getting diagnosed with the mental illness.
yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
was gonna ask you, how are you on medication currently?
No, I couldn't do what I do
Oh, wow,
on
okay.
medication.
And
Yeah,
you
it's a
feel
yeah.
pretty balanced and kind of you haven't had any of the symptoms?
No, I did. I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, um, but I did because I did something. I helped a client with their deepest, biggest fears, which is a really dangerous work with the unconscious, with the subconscious. So if you do that kind of work, it's gonna test everything you got, and that's why I'm not on camera today, because I lost a lot of weight.
Uh-huh.
So what happened is that I went all the way up and all the way down. I went, yeah, like it's the biggest bliss and the biggest shame and fear and terror, biggest horror movie, and all at the same time. That's singularity.
So you currently experience still like symptoms of bipolar, but you just see it in a different way and avoid the medication.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's a trap. Yeah.
I see.
So yeah. So for anybody out there, you heard me say and I'm gonna say I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just a guy who has a master's degree in economics, then got mentally ill, and then now through helping so many other people, I'm basically helping myself, because it's all me, it's all you, and that's a perspective from, right. We all one, so there's nothing else but Keith and Thomas right now,
Yeah.
and
So
everybody else can see themselves in us or not, right.
right. So when
Um,
the symptoms come up sometimes, if you still get symptoms of like depression or even if it's mild, how do you manage that and kind of work through that?
yeah, so the way I do it is probably not something other people can do at this time, but I have to go back and see how I started, because it's like this. It's almost like, yeah, um, yeah, you can explain the mechanics to some point, but then it becomes somebody's art, and there's no way somebody can explain to you how they do it, right? So I'm like a painter who goes back to how did I first learn how to use the brush. But it won't answer your question. I'm not capable of putting it into words
Right. Yeah.
a
They
lot
kind
of
of
people
have
would
to learn
understand.
through their own experiences and
Exactly,
yeah.
and that's so frustrating for us as humans in the physical world. Like we used to learn from books, and we can't, and like, yeah.
But that and
So
that's
what can I tell you?
what you do as a coach then, right? Is you kind of help these clients or people with struggling with symptoms
Yeah,
and work through that and manage their symptoms and stuff like that with a spiritual perspective, right?
yeah, exactly, and it's all about, and it happens to me too, right? That illusions get scattered, like,
Yeah.
and somebody I trusted, I turned out was a trap. So even I am doing this full time, and I'm working with transcending illusions, which is really really scary, right? There's nothing more scary than the unknown for a human. It's just so scary. But that's where the treasure is. But at the same time, my illusions got scattered because, like, I just couldn't believe that somebody would do something like that to me, and I didn't want it to be true. You know what I mean? So this all the healers or teachers, we are all human, and we also struggling with attachments to certain paradigms of how we see the world. We also struggle with judgment or with fear. So um, I think this is the approach, right? I always pay attention to the feedback I'm getting from other people, and then having discernment and trust, and realize what is true, what is not true.
Mhm.
And it's usually I feel it in my body. So this is the best tip I can give people. It's not mind over matter, it is mind with matter. We
Right.
have to stop thinking in hierarchies. Everything is connected, everything spirals. So your body can send your signal, and if your body contracts, it means that it might not be a good idea to trust that person. If your body expands, it might mean that it is a good idea to trust that person. But what if the person you trust doesn't have as many Instagram followers as the person you don't trust, but more people trust the other person you don't trust, right? So that's what I mean. You have to trust and go with your own guidance, with your own compass, because other people do what other people do, and actually you will find out that most people don't even look at their own instrument panel or gauge where they are. They just blindly do what other people do because they want to belong. So that's what I can tell you. You want to be together in hell, or you want to be alone in heaven?
So
Sounds like a pretty extreme choice, but sometimes it comes down to like, yeah, how much are you willing to sacrifice for this path and for your health? You don't have to. You can take medications and you can live a happy or fulfilling life. It just didn't work for me. I can only talk from my perspective.
right. Like, what would you say then? What did you learn from questioning? What is there to learn from this when you were kind of got first diagnosed with bipolar and going through all of that? What did you learn and find out through that?
Yeah. So with bipolar, what I learned is that, yeah, I wanted to have the easy fix because there was a promise you take a pill and you feel better. I didn't want to do the work, you know. Um, I only got one opinion. Like I didn't get multiple opinions, but at the time, it was good for me to acknowledge I have a problem. I am mentally ill, or I have a mental illness. The mental illness doesn't define me. Right?
Acceptance first. Okay.
Acceptance, yeah, and that takes. It's very humbling when I realized my own ignorance. I
Hmm.
just didn't want it to be true.
Right. So accepting the truth.
You need to accept the
After.
truth. Sometimes somebody else's truth or perspective, because at the end of the day, all perspectives are valid and they all have value. Otherwise, it wouldn't be given to you.
Right. So what new perspectives or lessons did you learn from the experience of being diagnosed with bipolar and afterwards and dealing with the symptoms and everything?
Never stop questioning. Never settle. Always. That's what I learned. And then other people give you advice. They don't bear the consequences of the advice, right? So
I see. So that experience triggered that reminder lesson to always question throughout life. So it kind of led to many other learnings probably then throughout life because you started questioning everything.
yeah, it gave me a sense of confidence. Like if I can heal bipolar, what else can I do? Because
Exactly.
people told me it's not possible.
Right. Right. So every experience triggers a lesson. It's a matter of kind of learning it, seeking it, finding it. And that's what people you say should do if they're, especially with mental illness, who are struggling with the symptoms of mental illness or whatever, is to find the lesson within that, see what triggers the lessons and grow with that.
Yes, Keith, that's beautiful. Just listening to you, my heart expanded. So that meant everything you're saying is absolute truth to me. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It,
Yeah, I see that. And it's interesting too, because they say, I don't know, you believe in karma? How kind of karma can be taken on from past lives. So you may be, coming into this lifetime with a mental illness or something as part of
oh,
overcoming
yeah. Yeah, there's
karma, right?
karma, there's a script, and then the law of grace supersedes the law of karma. So I can clear karma. So, yes, it is true.
Right.
And no, it doesn't define your life. Because if you want to,
Of
you
course.
can shift it in
Yeah.
an instant. Yeah.
And clearing karma, I mean, from what I've learned in metaphysics, they say a lot of clearing karma is just really a matter of seeking the lesson within the struggles. Like the things you struggle
Exactly.
with in life is a part of your karma, and you are meant to kind of go through that to find the lesson through that. And that's how you overcome it and grow from it. Uh,
Exactly. And
but
it's nothing more than an emotional
right,
charge. And sometimes the charge is stronger, sometimes it's not as strong. The stronger it is, the more it's going to get your attention. But absolutely, it's just a messenger. Get the message, the messenger disappears.
right, exactly. So yeah, I think that's amazing. So that's what, people out there who are struggling with any mental illness or things like that, it's just a matter of seeking the lesson through that and kind of being with yourself and, going towards your faith and finding the lesson, growing with that lesson and where you can kind of implement it in other areas of your life and growing with that.
Yes.
I'd say
And
that.
there's one more thing I would add to that, because it always needs to be physical as well. So
Right.
in addition, what you said, Keith, with the lesson, it's also pay very attention, good attention, close attention to the food you're eating.
That was my next question. So you read my mind. I was going to ask you what your diet was. That is because you said you stopped eating meat and stuff. So I was going to ask if that has kind
Yeah,
of helped you and
it's it's
uh,
it's
some
it's
type of
crucial.
thing, right?
It's the most important thing, actually. So, I mean, I was an athlete. I played soccer, and I had people taking care of me. But like, I learned when I was working out later on my own, I wasn't aware. Yeah, that food actually, any bodybuilder, athlete can tell you how important food is. It's like the
Right.
fuel you put into your body, and some people have a truck, they need diesel. Some people have a Ferrari, they need premium octane. Everybody's body is
Right.
different, right? So forget all the diets out there. Go back to what we said before. Tune into your body. What is your body telling you? If you have a mental illness, and if you accept a shamanic spiritual perspective that everything is a lesson, then you also probably are accepting the fact that stress hormones and the intention that goes into growing and cropping the food, it's going to be in your body. So if you eat organic food, that might be a little bit more expensive, but you can actually get your body get the nourishment and the purity of information it needs. That alone can take away the symptoms. So it needs to be
Right.
some kind of physical thing as well. And I would say food was probably the most important thing for me in order to heal myself. And spirituality is just, for me, it's everything, right? So I can't even tell you what was more important, because
Yeah.
everything is spirituality. Yeah.
So it sounds like, yeah, you found your purpose through this experience of going having the mental illness and everything, and it might be different for
Yes.
everybody else. There's a different lesson for them, but with the diet, how would you say it kind of changed for you, like the way you feel, or how's changing your diet helped you?
Yes. The mood swings went away. So bipolar is manic depressive. Is they say it's mood swings, right? And then hormones. If somebody's like, I'm a highly sensitive person. Uh, my sensitivity is very unusual for a man, and then introvert and everything. So
Right.
um, yeah, the food in America and the United States, it's really not good. It's
Right.
really bad, actually. And we don't know it because some people have never left the country, and that's all we know. And then we have health problems. But like, if you travel and you eat food from or you have the money to go to really, really good like farmers market and stuff, it's really expensive, right? And you do that for a week, you will see how your body changes, and then a lot of
Yeah.
symptoms go away overnight. It's almost to a point where, like, no, this is not a miracle. I'm pissed at the medical pharmaceutical industry. I'm really angry. Like, it was at the point I was like, oh, I see what's going on, but I can't tell anybody because I don't want to sound like one of these, right? But I was like, wow, it's actually true. Yeah, so the food is everything.
Yeah, right. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense because your diet is your body and everything's connected to your brain, and even like
Hmm.
things like gluten, I know, clog up your parts of your brain and stuff like that. And obviously mental illness is a chemical imbalance in the brain or certain things like that. So like a diet can definitely kind of help the flow of balancing
Yeah.
chemicals and stuff like that in the brain. So what do you say to people who, because I know a few people who've kind of gone on and off with accepting that they are bipolar or have mental illness and not, like, how do you help somebody
Yes.
kind of accept where they are with the mental illness?
Yeah, first of all, don't accept labels other people give you, but just understand where they're coming from, their point of view, and learn about science, right? So there's a book, there are two tips, and if somebody wants to write them down, the one book is from a psychiatrist, Van der Kolk. I, I think he's from Belgium, and the book is called The Body Keeps the Score. The Body Keeps the Score. And the DSM-5, it's the statistical manual for mental disorders. They didn't include developmental childhood trauma as a disorder. So if you can't, so if you're a psychiatrist, you only have permission to diagnose somebody based on this manual. But if the manual doesn't list the illness that many psychiatrists have recommended to put in there, because a lot of children have childhood trauma. My parents divorced when I was 6, and I grew up in another country. I didn't speak a word German. I didn't know like what's going on. I missed my family. I was heartbroken. So if somebody like me doesn't address his trauma, it's going to affect him as an adult, and it's going to be suppressed emotions, and it's going to manifest as mood swings. But we don't have childhood trauma in the DSM-5. So what I'm going to do? Let's go with the next specs. Oh, bipolar 2. Yes, let's give it a bipolar 2 level, and then let's use this medication. The question you need to ask as a scientist: how many people need to be treated in order for this to work, right? So you need probabilities. You need, if you want to make a decision as an investor, where do you put your time, your money, you want to know how likely a treatment is going to help you. So if it's a psychiatrist, if a scientist can't give you this information, it's two things: either they don't know, or they're not telling you. And that's where most people stop researching, and that's completely insane from one perspective. Because if we go on vacation, we probably do a lot of research to get the cheapest flight. We don't go with the best offer. We go back in, we ask friends, whatever, and then we find a good flight, a good trip, hotel, and then we book it. But with mental illness, for some reason, all this logic, all this due diligence, all the responsibility, we throw it out the window, and we go to our savior. And people who have been through the medical field can tell you that a lot of hardworking people and a lot of people who really, really care about your health. And as in any industry, right? You go to a car mechanic, there's a car mechanic that's going to treat you well, and there might be a car mechanic that doesn't really care of, and it's business for them, right?
Yeah.
So you need to have responsibility and take responsibility and empower yourself as a patient that you truly want to heal. So you need to become the expert. I know more about mental illness than many professionals do because they have never experienced it. So I had to address it from many different angles, right? Exercise 2 hours a day, you learn yoga, and then over time you get better and better, and then you can balance your energy field in a second, right? But when you start out, it might take 90 minutes. So I put in the time, and not everybody can do it, right? Not everybody can divorce his wife, quit his job, and then basically say like, I don't have financial responsibilities. I'm gonna heal. I understand that not everybody can do that, right? So everybody's approach is different, and all I can say is, what if this is a computer game and you just chose to play a more difficult level because you wanted to have a more difficult handicap, like in golf, right? So I like the word handicap way more than disability, because it makes me feel like a powerful athlete.
Yeah, because everything's a balance. Even mental illness, you still have an ability. You have other kind of balances out. I've heard a lot of the people say who have bipolar, who kind of something with their brain, that they can see more. They kind of, their gifts come out, right? So it's a matter of all perception and just seeing yourself in a different way, finding the lessons. This has been a great conversation. Definitely learned a lot. So I think that the big takeaway is that to seek the lesson in your experience, to find what it is that you're learning and apply that to all of your other aspects of your life and grow with that.
Yeah, I really like that, Keith. Yeah.
It's been amazing. So for other people who might need kind of help with guidance, where can they find you?
Yes, the best thing is my website, thomasbtrusted.com. So my name is Thomas Bartholomew Thornton, and Thomas, Betrusted. It's a reminder that, I'm not supposed to lose my mind, but always make sure that I help people with pure intentions. And then, I work with people who have schizophrenia and all kinds of things. But all I do is only provide a perspective, and it's completely up to the client if they want and how they want to change and have their life continue.
Right. It's always up
So
to them. Yeah.
it's always up to them. You have a choice, Keith, and everything is your free will choice. And nobody can take away your free will.
Exactly. You have to want to change, and you have to want to help and be helped and be healed. So it's been a great conversation. Really appreciate you coming on. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keith. I really appreciate what you do. It was my honor to be here. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.